Hi everyone, welcome to our channel. We are the Three Hokages and this is the Tatakatalk podcast. So today we wanted to talk about a very special, extremely weighted episode, the final episode of Attack on Titan, the long-awaited anime which took roughly 10 years to finish. We just watched the last episode that released, I think about 2 weeks ago, 1 week to 2 weeks ago. And we wanted to kind of decipher it for you guys, launch a discussion, and maybe just having a free flow conversation about our first impressions of the episode. So
wait, but first I think we should introduce ourselves. I'm Anna.
I'm Marvin.
I'm Miguel. And also this is part 2 because we previously recorded just a Attack on Titan episode on freedom, the topic of freedom and different perspectives that you can see play out in the anime. And right now this is part 2, including the ending. And I think I included some at the end of last video. I think I included some like teasers with my my manga scenes. So I'll be discussing a few of these later on, especially probably this one. So yeah, this is the logic on this episode. Can you guys, is it focusing kind of or not too much?
Yeah, I think we can see pretty much, like, it's not completely focused, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you're gonna bring that scene up anyway, so
we're
exactly. Gonna be able to discuss it in details. If I could start with this episode, to me, the first thing that jumped out was very much the quality of the episode. Like, the quality of the animation, it was just beautiful. Like, let's be honest here, it was beautiful. Mappa has done an extraordinary job, and I know it's not easy because there's been a lot of controversy with the overworking of the animators, which Anna will know because of it's an industry that you know pretty much.
Yeah, as someone who has like studied animation, basically it's really difficult to bring stuff to life and make it and do it good, and specifically when it comes to 2D, like the arduous work. I can only imagine what those animators are going through, and honestly, kudos to them. I applaud to them, and screw Mappa for abusing them basically. But like, no, it was a really nice episode. Like, the animation was actually extremely, it was really nice. Like, the 3D blended beautifully. It was not super awkward where you see like a 3D thing, obviously 3D, like in the middle of 2D stuff. It was actually pretty well made.
Unlike previous seasons of Attack on Titan, I remember the Colossal Titan appearing in some episodes. It was an awful 3D
you know
blob.
What? You know what's the worst 3D ever? In Attack on Titan is when the king becomes like a huge like Titan that is like crawling on the ground.
Yeah. That was
thing,
absolutely awful.
It was awful.
But I still think that the big Colossal on the wall, like diving at Eren, was also one of the worst ones.
Fair enough.
It was so not seamless. It was disgusting.
You mean because it was like you couldn't differentiate between the 3D and the 2D? It was like merged weirdly together? Is that
like in the last episode? Yeah, I felt like it was seamless. You could switch from 2D to 3D because there is ways I know to make 3D look like 2D, so it's to kind of flatten the volumes. And in the last episode it worked really good. But I remember in previous seasons, because Mappa was not always the studio that animated Attack on Titan, you can really tell because a bunch of designs changed, mostly Mikasa. It's crazy how physically she changed from one season to another. But no, I remember this scene where Eren was fighting Reiner at the bottom of the wall, and then suddenly Berthold transformed and started like dislocating his hips to fall onto Eren and just like dive. But I remember the 3D being so awful and so ugly that I watched and I was like, it reminded me of what they did with Demon Slayer with the demons, and it's just like not proper. It looks like Cocomelon. I really don't like it.
It does look like Cocomelon.
But honestly, this episode, personally really like it. I think it was a well-deserved ending, which took a long time in the making, but overall, I think it was just a grand episode.
You know something that I really liked about the episode, the imagery, because there is this one specific thing that I was gonna bring up eventually, but I'm bringing it up right now. There is one shot. I'm not sure if in the manga, because I'm sorry I didn't read the manga, but there is one moment where everyone's hanging basically underneath Eren's like bones, and there's a bunch of colossus under them, and then Mikasa, she kind of like decides to like tell every Titan, attack me, I'm strong, because everyone was beat up. Connie, Levi, Jan, Reiner, everyone was beat up except her, so she was like, attack me, and she jumps, and as she jumps, there is the Falco's wings behind her. It looks like her wings. And it's like an amazing imagery of this is the way I interpret this moment was Mikasa got her freedom, as in she saw everyone suffering and she snapped and she was like, this shit has to end. And like, even if it comes back in the episode that she's questioning whether or not Eren should die, I think at this moment she was like, it was the moment of realization of it has to happen. You know, it has to happen. There's no other way. It needs to happen. And she was like, I'm gonna push through, basically.
It was almost like a heroic sacrifice, wasn't it? Because she didn't know if she was gonna make it out of it. She just dove right in, and it was very much movie symbolic, movie imagery, because there's always this one person that is like doing the ultimate sacrifice, right? Turns out the ultimate sacrifice might have been Eren all along, but that comes like afterwards, and there was a nice parallel between the two. But her diving into this pool of terrifying colossal titans was honestly like, I didn't remember the image with the wings, but now that you just brought it up,
because she didn't throw herself at the colossus.
She was flying over them.
No. The thing is that they were surrounded by the titans that were created.
The white ones.
The white ones. She was surrounded by those, and they were about to attack everyone, Levi, everyone, and she was like, attack me. So she jumps in an attempt to like distract them from the other ones.
Okay, yeah.
And then Falco comes and we see his wings. And
she was on the bones and she jumped down at the colossals, and then Falco went from underneath.
Everyone was underneath.
Yeah.
I thought it was her wings. You're right. I'm like, you want to know what I thought? This is so embarrassing. Remember, is she the princess of the Sumabitu or something? Like, remember,
she's like
she
has
something like that. She has like these it's not is it a tattoo? I don't know what it is, but it has like their symbol of the clan, I guess, something like that. And I thought, is this some secret power of the Ackerman that they can get wings or something?
That they can have wings?
Yeah, I was like, what's going on? Because I had seen just like a snapshot of the scene in social media before watching the episode, so I didn't know. I didn't know Falco got the ability to fly. So when I saw the wings, I'm like, what's going on? But yeah, that's an embarrassing confession.
I mean, if there was one Ackerman that would have been using those wings properly, it would have been Levi.
He would have jumped at Zeke like episode 1, boom, dead immediately.
He would have flown like an eagle, like beak first, be like for killing Zeke.
But he basically did that regardless. When he
did. He jumped at Zeke and he was like,
and he was already like
crippled. He didn't have a leg.
Yeah, he didn't have a leg. And Connie had already said, because of me, Levi is no longer able to fight. This is my fault. And then you see Zeke coming out of this spike of this bone. And then he is like, oh, the weather is nice, like... If only...
This conversation was actually
the funniest moment.
It was the funniest thing, because Zeke was out and was like, oh, it's a nice sunny day. And I don't know why this dude hates me. And then Levi showed up and he was like, you little, I'm gonna fuck...
Like,
he went straight straight for him.
Literally, it was a moment of reflection for Zeke. He was like, he literally is like, oh my god, it's such a beautiful day. I wish I had seen the world like this before.
Yeah.
Boom, comes Levi.
If only
That was
I
Thor
had seen
going
the
for the
world.
head, you know?
Go ahead.
What?
sorry.
What?
No, that was Thor in Endgame going for the head of Thanos.
Oh,
He's like,
yeah.
holding him, and he's like,
Yeah.
done. That was the same for Levi. He went straight for the head.
And I didn't see that coming because, as you were saying, he was like looking almost like he was looking at a sunset, you know, like reflecting
almost
on
poetic.
life. It was poetic. He was like, if only I had thought like this way sooner. And I'm like, I was thinking, is this some, you know, last moment plot twist? And then Levi is like, I'm not giving up.
And Levi's like, no.
I'm not giving up on Erwin's order. And then he flew. It was like, I was honestly
He
so
flew.
shocked.
He literally, man threw himself just to kill Zeke, yeah.
Exactly. It was amazing, that scene. And then at the end, I don't know how he moved the leg. Honestly, because when he was standing, he was like grabbing Connie because he couldn't stand on his two legs. And I was like, what's going on? But he's the boss. Like, he's the...
Somehow he could still move. Somehow he could still... I know. He's... Honestly, Levi... Like, he got the worst out of everyone in this entire freaking show. Because I'm like,
he really did.
all Levi wanted was to open a tea shop. And somehow all his friends died. Every single one. Not one got saved.
He got beef with the big monkey.
He had to deal with a freaking huge monkey killing everyone. And then my dude ended up in a wheelchair in the middle of, like, I don't even know where he was with Onyankopon, and I'm like, oh my god.
Missing an eye.
Missing
in a
an eye,
wheelchair.
like, in a wheelchair.
How
Oh
did
my
he miss
God.
an
The
eye?
whole thing. I think he got scratched right here.
Yeah. He...
Oh.
Because No, it happened... You remember when Zeke exploded himself?
Yeah,
And
that-
Levi got...
That's when it happened, because he had the bandages here.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
you're right. It
But
happened
I
before.
thought at least he had the eye, right? I thought he lost it completely, but when they showed him at the end, it's just like he's blind, right?
Yeah, he's blind,
basically.
basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't know he still had something behind, you know, the bandage.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
I thought that he was, like, nothing there, but apparently he was just blind.
exactly. Any other general thoughts that you wanna share from this final
Well,
episode?
One of the moments that stuck out to me, and it will roughly go around the same character, because I think that this one was maybe one of the biggest surprises of them all. Falco was really cool in this episode. Like, we've seen his Titan form before when he went berserk on the previous episode, so it wasn't a surprise to see him looking the way he did. But the whole plan of the big attack of Titan against Titans, and it was like crazy with Reiner, which I have a lot to say about Reiner, but we'll get there. The whole story, because fine, I'll do a little divergence right now, but we said that Levi was the one that got it the hardest. I would argue that Reiner might be the one that got it the worst, because this man only wanted to die the whole time.
It's been 3 seasons
All
and he
he
just
wanted
wants
to
to
do
die.
was dying, and then still they keep pulling him back. There's a moment where he cries at Enen's feet because he's so apologetic, like in season, I think it was season 4.
Yeah.
He's crying, and Enen has his crutches, and he's like, I'm sorry for everything that I did. He's so regretful. And then Enen's basically like, screw you, I'm still gonna do whatever I want. And I'm like, poor Reiner. His parents are watching him getting beat by like 10 times.
You know what's the worst part? There's this moment in the final episode where there's Reiner and there comes the colossal titan of Berthold,
Yeah,
and Reiner is like, oh my god.
I know.
And the titan comes and bites off the head of the colossal...
yeah.
Oh, no, of the
the
armored.
armored.
And I was like, oh my god, finally Reiner got his death, because this man has been wanting to die. Jan saved him.
Jan
And
saved
I'm like,
him.
oh my god.
He will not. And you know what's the worst part? because the power of the Titan got erased at the end. He gets more years to live.
Yeah, he gets to
Like,
live.
this man will never die. No matter what, he will never die.
He will never
Like,
die.
he was like, I'm gonna die next year,
My dude
finally.
never
And then
dies.
he's like, oh, you got 25 more years, by the way. It's like, no. Fucking Reiner.
Just let me die! Just let me die! Let me die in peace!
I honestly, I love him. I think out of all the characters, Reiner might be one of my favorites.
Fair enough.
Because I
fair enough.
really like his Titan. I think it's super cool. And I like the whole trio of Annie, Reiner, and Berthold. Because I find him super interesting. Since the moment where they revealed to Eren that they were the one who attacked the city, I just like that trio. I find them probably some of the most interesting characters in the entire anime. And yeah, poor Reiner. He fought everyone the whole time. He ran. His mom was looking at him getting beat up by Titans, and it kept on going. But to end this note, Falco in this episode, when he appeared with everyone on his back, really very much carrying the whole battle, I was like, that's just amazing. Like, we have seen Titans fighting, we have seen cool fighting scenes between Titans, but between Reiner, Falco, and Peak, who fought for like 6 hours in a row, getting out of her Titan, going back in, going back out, going back in, I'm like, Peak is crazy. I love her.
Honestly, like, I always love Falco ever since he appeared. I love him. And I was impressed because I'm like, this is the first time he is the Jaw Titan.
True.
For the first time. And he has to dodge freaking arrows coming at him from the Warhammer Titans on Eren. And I'm like, he's pulling this stuff. And then Peak, like, she transformed. And honestly, well, the thing is, I have my opinions on characters, right? So the first time that I watched the episode, I was like biased towards certain characters and biased, and But right now that I rewatched the episode to record the podcast, I honestly Peak pretty badass. Like, she got stopped by the Warhammer when she was about to explode Eren's neck. Then she came out and she started transforming and fighting and transforming and fighting. And I was like, honestly, pretty badass.
You just don't know when to give up, do you?
I'm like this all day.
Because isn't the specialty of the card Titan being stamina? Isn't what she says?
She said that it's like a resistance, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
she can transform many times. And she also was the first one to make the decision of, we need to kill Eren. Because they were on
True.
the back of Eren. And suddenly all the white Titans starting appearing. And everyone was like, what do we do? Like, everyone was questioning themselves. Even Levi was like kind of dumbfounded because the disgusting Titan that looks like a cow came to get
cow.
Armin. And everyone was like, what do we do? They took Armin. And she was like, you know what? Time to kill Eren. I'm not her friend. I'm not his friend.
I've always said it. Peak top tier character in Attack on
Yeah,
Titan.
fair enough. She's
Always
pretty
said
cool.
it.
She's pretty cool.
Even
She
though
rep-
she looks the way she looks in Titan form, she's still pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
I think she represents like the holding on to your convictions, but on the other side, right? Although she was used by Marley, which is like weird because she still was loyal to Marley, although she was being used by them, right? And you can see when you see all like Reiner's mother, Peak's father, they're all reflecting and wondering when they were on the train, and they're wondering, are they still alive or not? And then you see Peak's father say, this badge, was it a badge, like the thing they put on their arm, like the
Like
honorary
Like the
Marlian?
handkerchief that they
like the
have?
warriors?
like the band. It was like
the
like a
band,
band.
the band,
Mm.
yeah, the band they put on their arms. I think there's one guy that says, "Oh, you should throw it away," and Pig's father is like, "This is, a band that my daughter got through her efforts to help me," and then you see that everything that they go through, it's actually for their family, so that they are not exploited by Marley, and then you see why it's so complicated overall, all these dynamics and why they're so loyal. But it's extremely extremely complex as it has always been, the plot of Attack on Titan. And one thing that I remembered while you were talking, Marvin, regarding Reiner, is that when Eren he like stands up after they blow up like the founding in the bones of the founding, he stands up again, and Reiner sees this thing. What is it called? Is that the founding final form or original form? Like this larvae,
No,
like
the
this
centipede?
worm?
I think that that's not a Titan per se, but you remember when Armin and Zeke are talking in the coordinate?
Yeah.
Zeke mentions a being called life. And I think that this thing is the being that's called life. That is not willing to ever die. That's not willing to give up on whatever it is doing, you know?
You're talking about the centipede, right?
Yeah.
That we keep
The
seeing.
centipede,
Yeah.
Because I always assumed that was like more than life, but you might be right, but I always assumed that it was some sort of representation of Ymir, one way or another, that it was related to the power of the Titans. I always thought it was the case.
Because that's what Ymir found, right? When in the story back in season 4, when Ymir goes to this tree, that's what she found, I think, and that's what you see like takes over her body, and then she becomes like the founding Titan. So I think it's like
it's the thing she
original
finds, yeah.
But so it would be like the pure form of the Titan, founding Titan, probably.
I think it's more of a pure form of life, according to Zeke, according to what Zeke said, because I do think, like you said, this was, I assume, I am speculating right now, but I think that this thing was being controlled by Ymir, because later on when Eren has his talk with Armin, we find out that this was Ymir's plan, basically. But this thing is I think is the entity of life, of like, that thing is so unwilling to die that it trapped itself in the tree, and then Ymir came and basically they fused.
I'm Coyote Peterson, and I'm about to be bitten by the giant desert centipede. Here we go.
In a way, right? But this thing is never gonna die.
So when
we see it at the end of the episode.
So when it started, like, leaking this gas, or it was actually Ymir who was doing that to convert everyone else that was there into like a Titan. I'm guessing
because what? No, keep going.
No, that was it. Like, do you think she was controlling that centipede at that point?
I think she might have been, because there is one point where I am not too sure, but this is what I assume, is that in the conversation with Eren and Armin, Eren says specifically, Ymir didn't show me why, but Ymir knew that the solution was Mikasa. For Ymir, the solution was Mikasa, but I didn't know why. And Eren says, I kept going with the plan regardless, but I didn't know what was gonna be the final thing with Mikasa until it happened. So to me, everything was Ymir's plan. Basically, she made everything happen so that she could have like her own freedom, her own, like, finally being free from the coordinate, being free from everything.
Closure, I think that's what she was looking for.
Closure. And the only person who could give it to her was Mikasa, because she killed the one she loved. Like, she went against her own feeling of love.
I think it's because, more than that, she held the same love for Eren that Ymir had for the king. But Mikasa, like you were saying, was able to do what Ymir was never able to.
Ymir never escaped the king. For 2,000 years, she was making titans for him. And Mikasa, she freed herself from the love that she had for Eren, because she had to. It was what needed to be done, and that's what Ymir wanted to do, I guess. So it's like closure for Ymir, yeah.
I think that's a great... Go ahead, Marvin. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say that was crazy. The whole parallel between Ymir and Mikasa. I thought it was. I was not expecting that, because I knew most of the ending, but I didn't know the specifics because I got spoiled like everyone else. But watching the thing and seeing it unfold, I have my gripes with some parts of the ending, which we're gonna go afterwards. But This part was actually one of the smartest ones. It made a lot of sense with Eden's plan, but I'll go back on that. What were you saying, Mia?
I was going to say that I think that's a great topic that maybe we could touch on, like the ending and the twist plot of Ymir waiting for Mikasa, because the 2,000-year-long wait at one point I thought was for Eren, right? But then you see Eren explain that it was Mikasa who finally freed Ymir. And at the same time, although we have said why we think she freed her, it is never explained in detail, right? We can assume that it's because of the scene, because Ymir is standing right there in the Colossal Titan's mouth when Mikasa cuts Eren's head. But we don't know if there's something more, right? About a conversation they might have had or something like that. But what I wanted to say is that I just think it's crazy that it's about love in a way, and I think Attack on Titan does explore that topic in a different perspective. It's definitely not like romantic love in a traditional way. The relationship Mikasa has with Eren, and that's one of the topics that I wanted to touch on, and I think it's related to the ending and goes back to season 1. And I think it actually connects to the scene that you touch on, Anna, when Mikasa, we see Falco's wings behind her, and she's like, I'm strong, I can fight. And if you think and remember season 1, there's a similar scene when I believe they run out of gas. It's not gas, but they are almost running out of gas for the ODM gear. And Mikasa just heard the news that Eren had been eaten by some Titan. I think Armin tells her. And she goes into this period of grief. And then it's like, oh, I'm just going to fight all the Titans and I'll make my way through headquarters or something. And then she runs out of gas, and then there's a Titan, and she's like, she at that point gave up on life, and she is saying, I lived a good life. And she remembers the scene with Eren where he's like wrapping the scarf around her neck, and you see like the Titan walking towards her, and then almost as soon as the Titan is going to grab her to eat her, Eren shows up and just like punches the other Titan in the face, and Mikasa is like, I'm sorry, Eren. Like at one moment when the Titan is going to grab her, her body keeps moving. She keeps like reacting and moving away from the Titan, and she's like, wait, I thought I had already given up on life, like what's going on? And then she thinks again about that scene of the scarf, and she's like, I'm sorry, Eren, I will never give up again. As long as, and she says, if I die, I wouldn't be able to remember you anymore. And that scene for me is one of the top scenes in all of the anime. Just like how she thought about Eren and the bond they have being, greater than Eren's betrayal, so to speak, because she treasures that bond, beyond Eren's actions. She is able to stay true to what she felt towards him, although he chose a different path. And I think that is perfectly depicted when, she goes up against him and she kills him. And I wanted to know what you guys think about that. Do you think that is what Ymir needed to see to be free, or what was it in general that freed her from the 2,000-year agony? Because Mikasa actually says that, I think the 2,000 years years have been a nightmare for you. So do you think it was that, like being able to separate the person you love, be it a family member, because mostly throughout the anime I saw them as like family. You know, I didn't see like as romantic love, but like a familial love kind of way.
Makes sense.
And I think just in life in general, many times it's difficult for people to transition, you know, or separate someone you love from their actions, and you can end up in this you can end up turning your feelings into hatred. And I think that might be something that Ymir saw in her, like, how are you doing this? You know, this is like transcendental in a way. So that is my take, that witnessing her actions, her testimony of the separation that you can make, help her, you know, move on finally. But I don't know what you guys think.
Well, the thing is that in the final episode, we do see Mikasa talking to Ymir at the very, very end. But like after she killed Eren. And there's a scene of like something that I assume is what Ymir wanted. We see the King Fritz dead, and Ymir hugging her daughters. And so to me, yeah, it's like absolutely the whole thing had to do about love, and absolutely Mikasa had to do what Ymir couldn't do, which is basically getting rid of this. Even though he loved this man, it is something that she needs to rip off. Like, you know, you need to get rid of this, whether you like it or not. It's gonna be for the better. So I think that literally, like, Ymir had to see it. And there's something that Mikasa says that to me, it's like intriguing, that Mikasa tells her, you created life, and without you I wouldn't be here. And I was like intrigued. I was like, I'm not quite sure what you meant by that, but she told Ymir that before Ymir disappeared. And I don't know up to what extent everything was planned by Ymir, period. Like, I don't know up to what extent everyone was like little pieces in a checkerboard where she moved everyone. So I don't even know up to what extent that goes, if it's just Eren or if it's everyone. But yeah, I think that it's like I guess like the anime as a whole has many ideas to that they want to tell us. Yeah. And I think that the idea of being able to separate someone from their actions is obviously one of them, clearly, because I mean, this is seen in the whole show regardless of love. Like, for example, you have Berthold, Reiner, and Annie. They came and killed multiple people in Paradis Island, and then they became friends with them, you know, and they are not telling them in their faces, oh, you remember that you killed everyone. They were able to go past their actions because of the person who they were. They are like, they realized that they are not just random evil people that came here to kill. It was more complex than that. And same with Eren and Mikasa. It's like Mikasa knows him since forever, and she sees a good Eren that people don't see because obviously he's destroying the world. And then Mikasa has to do the opposite of what they had to do for Reiner, Annie, and Berthold. Is that she has to see the bad in Eren. She, even though she doesn't want to, she wants to only see the good one, and she keeps remembering Kid Eren, and she keeps remembering the scarf, and she keeps remembering all these good things. She has to force herself to like open her eyes. And while she never really, like in the final episode, for example, we never see her remembering a bad moment with Eren other than when he told her that he hated her, and even then she is not that like reactive to it. She had to open her eyes to reality of seeing her friends suffering, and this was right before the moment of the wings, to be able to realize that Eren, I want to save Eren, but it's not possible, you know? Like, as much as I love this man, as much as I want him in my life, you have to snap back to reality. And I think that that's also what Ymir needed. It's like a snap back to reality of like...
What about me? Snap out of it, girl. You better pull yourself together.
Yes, I love this man, but like everything reaches a limit because they said that King Fritz killed Ymir's family. Made her daughters eat her. Well, a bunch of horrendous things, and it's like Ymir could have stopped that by killing this man, but she was just never able to, and she changed herself into this love thing. And even in the coordinate where she was not dead, she just kept doing, like, following his orders basically. And it's just like, yeah, it's an interesting message that the anime tells us. Interesting that we see both sides, where you have to question someone who's done bad things in order to see their good things, and someone who's done good things, in this case Eren, and you have to be like, wait, this person's actually doing bad, and this person has to be removed.
But
yeah.
you see, that's why I don't believe that everything was part of Ymir's plan.
Okay.
Because of what you're saying. I had this thought watching the episode, because at the end I got really confused by the sense that it was Ymir's plan all along. They don't really say it this way, but they pretty much insinuate that it is. What I'm thinking is, she might have put the pieces in the right position, but she did not create the ending, as in she put Mikasa in the way of where she was supposed to be, but then the ultimate choice was up to Mikasa. Was she gonna follow the same footsteps as Ymir and prove Ymir right? Or was she gonna make the ultimate sacrifice and kill the person that she loves for the greater good? And I think that Ymir could not have anticipated that. And I wanted to mention something else, because I made a mistake in the previous episode, because I didn't know. I was mentioning Eren's kind of time constrict thing, where he was basically forcing himself to do everything. And I didn't realize, because at the end, when Armin and Eren have a conversation, you realize that Eren is pretty much losing his mind, because he lives in all those timelines at once, and he basically has no control whatsoever on what's happening. He's reliving the same events, and he's saying in himself, he's like, I've done this event time and time and time and time again, and the outcome is always the same. He has no control over his life. He's pretty much a prisoner of what's going on, and I think that everyone is a prisoner of what's going on. The only one that truly had a choice was Mikasa, and she made that decision at the end. She had to make it, and she did what Ymir could never do. And I think that it proved Ymir wrong, that this is not an unbreakable cycle. So more than Eren's story, at the end of the day, it was mostly Mikasa's story.
I agree. I agree. I think, going back to season 1, there's a point where when Eren is eaten by the Titan, at that moment, Eren, Mikasa, and Armin were so close. They were always together, that you as a viewer are tempted to think that Mikasa was going to be the protagonist, right? And honestly, when I watched that scene when Eren was eaten by the Titan, I thought, okay, then I was wrong. Then Mikasa is the protagonist, because everyone was dying so fast, and then Eren supposedly was already dead. And flash forward to the last episode, you find out that Eren was playing a role in getting Mikasa, together with Ymir, but he didn't know what the outcome of that coming together was going to be. He said that. And I think it's amazing, because again, it goes back to the topic of freedom. Last episode, I think this final episode changed everything. Or at least on my end, it changed most of the things that I thought about Eren. Like, he literally was trapped. Same. Not even in like jumping back and forth in a timeline. He was in a constant black mess, like a black hole where time didn't exist. Everything was happening at the same time, and you can see that depicted more intensely when he starts speaking with Armin, and he says, do you remember Berthold? at that moment, I think he was referring to the moment Armin ate Berthold and got the colossal title, and he's like, "Do you recall that moment? Berthold wasn't supposed to die, so I went back and I made the Titan eat my mom instead." Something like that. Like he was literally
Right, he did change the course of events.
trying to change them, and afterwards he said, I had done this so many times, and at the end the outcome was the same. However, he had no say on the outcome. Who had the final say was, in a way, Mikasa, because in a way Ymir was an spectator of what is going to be Mikasa's choice. And I think, for me personally, she's one of my favorite characters in all of anime so far, and I think the weight of that choice, like the difficulty of making that choice as a human being, you know, making a connection just to our daily lives. I wanted to ask you, have you ever met someone that has been trapped, or you have felt that they are trapped in a Ymir-like fashion, that it's like time goes on, and they might be, you know, 60, they might be in their final days, and they're still like stuck in the past, you know, they still have a grudge, they still cannot get over something, and you see that, you know, making them sick, and at that age they can hurt physically, I don't know, from their thoughts, and that has such an impact on people that I believe some people like lose the will to live, you know, just because they cannot move on. And actually, Ymir, if you recall the conversation between Zeke and Armin, Zeke said that Ymir created the coordinate, you know, the paths, as this place where death didn't exist. So, you know, you can live eternally in the paths, and she was in so much pain that she decided to, you know, isolate herself in the paths and don't have to face that which was tormenting her, which is crazy when you compare it to real life. In my experience, I think that happens, and I think there is kind of a similar parallelism to real life, where you can say the paths are real, the coordinate is real, so to speak. And I think Carl Jung called it the collective unconscious. I don't know if you have heard of him. He's a psychologist, but yeah, I think that place where you refuse to let go exists, and it just speaks to the amazing feat that Mikasa accomplished at the end.
I believe that we all have it. I believe that place, sure, it's not the literal thing that is portrayed in the anime, but I do believe that to some degree the regrets that we carry with us, the pain, the trauma, a lot of things that happen, they follow us through life, and they influence our decisions in some sort, which can also be related to Eren, but because he might not be in charge of what's going on, but the pain that he suffered through, and Ymir is the same, what happened to them directed their choice to what they ultimately did. The fact that Ymir isolated herself, created all those titans, devoted herself to the king, no matter what awful things he did to her, because he was an awful person. But I think whether it's a breakup, whether it's a memory, a painful memory, whether it's something that was inflicted on you, something that you did that is sticking with you, I feel like memories hold such a deep impact on our brain chemistry. I think that memories might be some of the most powerful things in the world. Like, if something is powerful enough to put a stain on you, to put a mark, I don't think it ever leaves, because trauma is such a tricky thing to deal with. It's such a tricky thing to get rid of, specifically. And when you have such a deep level of affection towards someone, I would like affiliate with grief, for example, losing someone that you care about. Those people that lost their significant other, I remember those videos that I watched recently. They always make me miserable, and I hate watching them, but sometimes social media will recommend them to me. and then I'm a mess for the whole day because I'm like, I didn't want to watch that. But like, it's those senior people, like those old people who explain what it was like to lose their partner at 80, 85, 90, and then trying to rebuild a life after that. And they were like, that person was my best friend for the past 50 years, and now I'm all alone. And what am I gonna do? And it's so heartbreaking because you see those people, they're struggling to make it make sense, to make their life make sense again. And that will carry with them till the day they die, really, because it's not something they get rid of easily. I don't know what you think.
No, I mean, the thing is that a connection that you have with someone, whether it be romantic love, brotherly love, any kind of love, breaking it, like when you, like, the perfect example is like grieving, because like just like in the anime, like it's like losing Eren literally, like he's gonna die. It's like losing someone in this way is so impactful that making a decision like that, I don't think is comparable to anything. So just like you were saying, Miguel, it's such an amazing fit of like making the choice, even if like you're in the middle of war and obviously like many things are happening, you're like, oh my god, things have to happen. It's a choice that no one wants to make. And even like one thing that really stuck with me is like we see the whole conversation with Armin and Eren, and Armin tells him, we're gonna be together forever in hell. And then when he comes back and there's no more Titans and anything, and Mikasa tells him she's holding Eren's head, and Armin sees it, and I'm like, Armin knew that he was gonna die. Armin knew what was gonna happen. Armin just stuck to Eren, and he goes to the head and he still cries and screams, and I'm like, yeah, it's like, even if you know what's going to happen,
It doesn't hurt less.
it doesn't hurt. It's gonna break you anyway.
But
so
one,
it's like for both Armin and Mikasa that this was like a extremely difficult decision. I believe.
I think one thing about what you said, Anna, that was a shocker to me was the fact that Eren had, at the end of the conversation they had, just toward the end of the episode, after they finish speaking, Eren says to Armin, it's time. The time has come, hasn't it? I will erase these memories until after I'm dead.
Yeah.
So, and then everyone started like remembering that Eren, because in season 4, it's weird because you don't see much about Eren. There's this like, this loophole, so to speak, of time where you don't see him, and the timeline is weird. And then right now, everyone is like, oh wait, he actually visited us. And Mikasa tells Armin, hey Armin, did you also get your memories back when Eren visited us? And when I was watching the scene of Armin and Eren talking, and then Mikasa and Eren by the cabin, I was like, wait, is this just the paths? Like, I was so confused. But then when Eren said that, I'm like, this actually happened. Like, he actually visited them. I don't know if in the real world, but...
How did you get in here?
The window?
Do you do that a lot?
Well, just the past couple of months.
But he communicated with them before he was dead.
And he told them everything. He told them all of his plan, and that was crazy to me to figure that out. To be like,
He told them
they
everything.
knew all along, but he made them forget until they were dead, because he knew that if they knew his plan, they would not follow it through.
I think that if they knew that his plan, they were not gonna kill him.
And I also think, Eren, whatever decisions he made, choosing to delete those memories is also like, just surprised me and shocked me so much, because it also showed that in his internal torment, like everything that was going on in his mind, losing a grasp of reality, he cared about them so much until the very end, and he was okay with them killing him, but he didn't want them to have those memories afflicting them. So I thought that was a great twist. And one more thing that I wanted to say related to those videos that I recommended to you on social media, Marvin, and the memories and trauma, is that a few weeks ago I also watched a video of two brothers. One of them was in the hospital, and I guess he was in his last days. He was terminally ill or something, and then the older brother comes to visit him in a wheelchair, and he gets assistance to stand up and go hug his brother. And he's telling his brother, hey, I'm gonna make up the name, John, do you remember when we would ride our bikes in the street? Do you remember when we would play basketball, soccer, whatever? We were so happy, weren't we? And these were like very like old people that were about to face death, and they still had that illusion of playing with your sibling, the joy of existing, because of a random moment. And when Zeke spoke with Armin, I was thinking the same thing, and I got goosebumps because Zeke, after giving all his life to the euthanization plan, in that conversation, and I thought that moment was amazing, in the conversation with Armin saw in the sand this leaf, and he saw the leaf because it was a memory of going uphill, toward in a race, and then Armin and Mikasa, and then Six sees the baseball, and he's like, but Six is seeing the baseball, but Armin is seeing the leaf. Did you notice that in a moment?
Yeah.
And I didn't notice it.
And Zeke,
that they were seeing the same thing, but it was different.
It was the same object, but to them it was different. Yeah.
Okay.
And then Zeke is like, where did you get that? And what he's holding from the perspective of Armin is the leaf, but on Zeke's perspective is the baseball. And in that moment, you see Zeke's eyes light up, and he's like, and Armin is saying, when we would race, on the hill, I don't know why, I just randomly thought the reason I was born was to raise Eren and Mikasa. And then in another day when we were playing something, I thought the same thing again. And then Zeke ends up saying, when he meets Professor, I forgot the name, the previous Beast Titan.
Saver or something like that.
Saver, yeah. Sava, I think it's in Japanese, I don't know, but Saver,
yeah.
I don't know how. And he's like, he tells him, I still think the euthanasia plan was right, but I wouldn't mind being born again if it meant that I would get to play catch with you again. And I think it's the same as with those two brothers that were going to face death soon, but just the mere joy of existing and sharing those moments are invaluable. And before we started the podcast, on our lives, when we would have like some conversations, I remember Anna was bringing up like random things, like, and then we thought about starting the podcast, and I'm like, I did, it's not like I had forgotten them, but seeing the detail in which she remembered those things literally made something in me like come back to life. I don't know what it is, but I was like, I remember those days. I was like I thought about all my life, and those memories like that we shared back in high school, and then me going to study abroad, and growing up, how your life changes, and seeing the strength those memories, as you were saying, Marvin, that have the power in some cases to traumatize you and incarcerate you, they also, I believe, have the power to free you in a way and to light up a spark that, I don't know, that makes you happy about being alive. And I believe that is what Mikasa found. She was able to choose from the array of memories, because she had horrible memories too. Just to end this idea, her parents were killed. Then their, so to speak, adoptive parents were also killed. And then she believed the person, her only home, her only family, Eren, was killed. And you never see her remembering those things. He chose to remember the scarf scene over and over and over again. And I think that, for me, the strength that requires, and for her to say in the moment, again, to bring up the scene that I was bringing, for her to say, I'm sorry, Eren, I will never give up again. If I were to die, I wouldn't be able to remember you anymore. The power of the memories, and specifically to choose a memory that gives you the strength to live, I think is one of the biggest takeaways for me.
I agree.
No, actually, you make a great point. Like, now that you just mentioned the power of memory of Mikasa, you're absolutely right. Like, I just connected the dots right now, that it's like Mikasa always had memories like the one with the scarf that made her feel the way that Armin and Zeke feel during their conversation in the how do you call it?
Coordinates.
In the coordinate. And it's true. And this, honestly, this just, like, right now, everything, like, blew my mind, because I'm like, this is why she's the one that has to do the final decision, because I feel like she's the only character attached to something that makes her life not be just what everyone thinks. Like, for example, Zeke think that life is just to multiply. He never realized that life was meant to be lived in moments. Eren was seeking for freedom. He never lived in the present. He was like, it's always like, I need to look for the thing that I cannot get. And Armin too, he was like in a state of, like, he was always very, like, nervous about things, but he wanted to get out and stuff. And the only person who kept being, like, attached to her life because of these moments of that where you really feel alive was her. And then with the final conversation between Zeke and Armin that makes basically everyone spark up, like all the previous holders, and they talk to them. And they realize that their lives are not designed by anyone, in the sense of, like, I was born to be the one who brings euthanization to the audience. Their lives were not designed for this. Their lives are just their lives. So the moment that is significant to Zeke is the moment he played catch. The moment that is significant to Armin is the moment that he played with Mikasa and Eren. And the moment that is significant to Mikasa is the moment of the scarf, or whatever other moment, but mostly the one with the scarf. And that's actually very, very impactful. The fact that she was the only freaking character in the entirety of the anime who basically knew what she was alive for. Of course, she had moments of doubt where she had when Eren told her, you're an Ackerman and you're meant to serve and I hate you. Of course, she had, like, she was hurt by Eren, but she never doubted her love for Eren. And she never doubted this moment of happiness that she had. And I think that this, unconsciously, because obviously she was not conscious of, like, I'm going to remember this memory that keeps me alive. But it was something that was so intrinsic to her character that hence made her the only one being actually able to stop someone like Ymir, who was stuck in a situation, in a state where she did not have any memory that would let her, in this case for Ymir, let go of life. Because if you're someone who has had a peaceful life, if you die peacefully. But Ymir didn't have a peaceful life. She didn't have a memory to hold on to. She didn't have the moment for why I was born. She didn't have that. So she was like so attached to this, to living, to staying in this path, in this coordinate, because she didn't have something significant, you know. She didn't have what made her, what Mikasa had to make her make the final decision. She didn't have what Armin and Zeke discovered at the end that made them like snap, and Armin wake up from being like in this comatose state, almost like being trapped inside the cow titan, and then Zeke being like brainwashed, and then suddenly realizing, I wish I had thought about this. I wish I had thought this way before. You know, like it's obviously it was too late, but it's actually kind of interesting how everything wraps up. You know, like.
But Ymir never had anything worth living for.
Yeah, she never had.
She had the king, but it was never something that was rewarding. It was never gratifying. She had this thing that was keeping her prisoner, and it all brings it back to the last topic of ultimate freedom, really, because Ymir was never free. And because the parallel with Mikasa that we were talking at the beginning is that Ymir was trapped by her own memories, by her own fate, because she was so stuck to the king that she could not free herself.
She was
But-
so what? Sorry?
Stuck. She was stuck to the king. She was like, she could not get out of his like hold. But Mikasa, what was keeping her going was the happy memories, was the love that she had, was everything. So what was keeping her stuck, quote unquote, actually was the complete opposite. And that's what allowed her to ultimately make the ultimate sacrifice, even though she might have killed Eren, but at the end she still longed for him in a way. She was mourning him, so she never forgot. So she was, I wouldn't say as far as saying that she was a prisoner, because she wasn't, but the ultimate choice that she made was weighing in on her. She never truly had the happy life that she wanted, but she had a life, and in this case she got it better than she could have. And I feel like it was still a beautiful ending for her because of all that she's been through and all that she had to do and everything that was weighing in, and she had to make this choice that was not fun, but ultimately was the right choice.
But I don't think that Mikasa didn't have a necessarily unhappy life.
No, I don't think that she had an unhappy life.
Because-
I just think that she didn't have the life that she was envisioning.
She didn't have the life that she was envisioning, but right now, talking about all the memory stuff and the fact that she told Eren specifically, I'm sorry, Eren, but I'm not gonna forget. Because this is the thing that is her living moment. There is this moment where everyone's coming back to the island and everyone's like, oh my god, they're gonna try to kill us because we killed Eren, be prepared, whatever. She's already in the island and she buried Eren, and she's in the, like, sitting by the tree, and she's crying because she's remembering him. She's remembering her childhood, she's sad. And then comes the bird and tugs at her scarf. And I think that this made her also like come back in like a way of like, yeah, like she's not supposed to forget Eren, obviously, but I think that she saw her throughout the years, and we saw this in the ending. We saw that she brought her husband and her baby and her family to the
But that's what I'm saying, that there's still remnants of this thing that is like, she could have had this life that she wanted, but it was never meant to be. And ultimately it is pretty sad that she was still hanging on to Eren. But it's true that the moment where the scarf was stuck, that it was a symbolic meaning to say, you're free, you don't have to stick to this. But because of her love and because of how much she cared for Eren, she kept coming back. And I know we had a disagreement. To me, Mikasa died at the same spot that Eren died.
Yeah, I think she was buried
And-
with Eren, I think.
Which
That's what I thought as well, but I don't know.
Yeah.
which makes it a little sad, like bittersweet, I would say.
I think that
Very
What do you-
bittersweet.
it's similar.
What do you mean
I think
bittersweet?
it's
Go ahead, sir.
I think that
Yeah.
the fact that she was buried at the same place as Eren, even though she had a husband and kids, was bittersweet because ultimately Eren was her biggest love, right? It was the one love of her life. And she still had this life. And I think that she married John, I think.
It looked like
Yeah.
Jen, but we don't know.
I am
And
tired
she-
of seeing all these memes on social media about. Have you seen like the Jan eating something that Mikasa cooked and then a bird
Yeah, and
comes?
Eren being
Yeah, and I didn't understand that because I hadn't watched the episode until literally just now, and now I understand. But I actually thought that would be on the anime on the last episode. But I think what they meant was that the bird comes and like wraps the scarf again.
Yeah. And also there's this meme where Jan is talking to Mikasa, they're married, and then he comes in and she's like, "No, wear the uniform." And he's like, "No," and then he comes back and he's dressed like Eren with the little like ponytail. And she's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, I can't, like, this would fully happen. She's like, "Put on the costume, get dressed correctly," and then he shows up dressed as Eren from season 4 and she's like, "Yeah." That's really funny.
I don't know why Jan would agree, because I do think it's Jan. I think it's shown that
I
it's
think
Jan.
so.
I think
but-
it looks like Jan.
In the manga, I think it is Jan.
I
Yeah,
think it's
yeah.
Jan.
But do you know? Sorry, I think I got you off. Sorry, I'll mention this later. But I think I got you off, Marvin.
No, go ahead. I was done.
Okay, so I don't know two things. First, the way I interpreted the scene of the bird coming and like wrapping the scarf around Mikasa's neck again. I got a flashback to the ending of season 2, I believe, when that scene also gives me goosebumps when Mikasa had hurt her foot and there's a titan coming and she's with Eren and Eren's hands are still healing and reforming, and the titan that is coming is the same that ate his mother. So
Right.
what's the name of Eren's father?
Grisha.
Yeah, Grisha.
Grisha. So it was Grisha's first wife that is coming, and then Eren, they have this very emotional scene where Mikasa starts saying, "Thank you, Eren, for everything. Thank you because you wrapped this scarf around my neck." And then Eren is crying and he stands up. And while he's facing the titan, he tells her, "I will wrap that scarf around your neck however many times it's necessary." So when I saw the bird, I'm like, I don't know how he's dead, but he kept his promise in a way. Because I don't know if you recall, she first said, "I wish I could see you again." And instantly the bird comes. She's like, "I wish I could see you again," crying, and she's like weeping, and the bird comes. And I'm like, wow, like he does still have expressions of love and of like a very like a strong commitment to his word that is impressive. That on one end. The other thing is that I also interpreted that scene as a way of Mikasa finally coming to terms with the fact that you don't necessarily need to move on from something. What I mean by that is that, Eren can still have that place in your heart, but, you don't need to destroy your life and just be here forever, like weeping and, grieving. I think that moment showed that grief is an eternal companion. It's an eternal process that never leaves you. And there's so much literature and so many poems, about someone losing one of their parents, someone losing someone they love, and that's something that will never leave you. Those memories will forever be powerful. Now, on the other hand, I don't... Sorry, what's that?
No, I said of course. I agree.
And then, on the other hand, though, I don't fully understand why like the role that Jan played with Mikasa afterwards. Because if you're getting like buried in the same place as Eren, you know, and you are married to someone else, I don't fully understand the dynamic. And I think maybe Jan, and actually I noticed that on while the credits are showing and the small screen shows that she still came back to visit Eren, I noticed that she was the first one, like walking up hill, like to visit him, and I think Jan was a bit behind. So I thought, I just thought I didn't fully understand the dynamic. Did Jan decide just to be there for her and support her because he loved her and he understood that what his role was? That's something that I don't fully understand, but what do you guys think? What do you think?
I personally think that he just accepted the situation as it was. That he understood the love that she had for Eren could never be replaced, but it was just different, and I think that he was okay with it. Also, Jan has no self-esteem, so...
No, but I was actually gonna mention this, in the scene where we see that Mikasa is dead. It feels so peaceful that I think that she did live a happy life like Eren wished for her to have. And I don't doubt that she loved her husband and her kids, and she loved everyone, because when we see the grave of Eren and there's 3 flowers, right, representing Mikasa, Eren, and Armin. And then when she's in her deathbed, we see her with 5 flowers, which I can only assume is her family, and she's surrounded, I think, by also flowers. And it feels so peaceful, and we see her with her wedding ring and everything, and I'm like, and with the scarf. And I don't necessarily think that she just always loved Eren and just married at this man and she had like a mediocre life and this man did too. I think that she loved both. The thing is that you can fall in love again, but like you said, Miguel, it's like when you lose someone, that thing is never gonna leave you. You're always gonna love them. Like, that's not something that's just gonna wash away because you met a new person. And I do think that Mikasa lived the life that Eren wanted to give her, that was like a happy, full life. It's just that by the end she decided to reunite with him because, like, just like Armin, it's like Armin telling him we're gonna reunite in hell. Armin went to live on with Annie, I believe, so his beloved one, right? But it's just a connection between Armin, Eren, and Mikasa that they honored even after death. Like you said, Eren with being like the whole bird thing, Armin saying the thing about meeting again in hell, and then Mikasa getting buried, I can only assume next to Eren. It's like a deep bond that a deep loving bond that they have. And I don't think that she ever replaced Eren with her husband, but I don't think that the same kind of love, it was not the same love for me.
No, it was different, I agree.
I think that she lived a happy life and she loved everyone that she had to love. It's just that there's a different kind of bond. Like, because, like you said, like, sure, Mikasa was in love with Eren, but it was more of a family bond, you know? Like, it was not just, I like Eren, he's cute. It was like, you know, he's my family. And we lived through the hardest moments in her life, I can assume. So yeah, like that's the thing that, and also I also like take into when you mentioned that Eren was doing like these shows of love to Mikasa, like by tugging at her scarf and stuff. Ultimately, we see that Eren gave shows of love to everyone with the memories, right? Because Connie says he showed me that my mom was gonna be human again.
True.
And he showed this to everyone. He showed love to everyone to the point where Peak said, I wish Eren would have talked to me, you know, kind of like in a mocking way, but because obviously everyone hated Eren, not his friends, but like Peak, she was like, I'm not friends with Eren and stuff. And then at the end I'm
gonna be the first to kill him. Yeah.
And by the end I think she kind of understood. And it's like, that's how we see that ultimately the character of Eren is not this evil mastermind that just wants to stomp over everyone. He actually loved everyone, all his friends, his family. He loved everyone. He was just trapped in a circumstance. It's just like life. You're trapped in circumstances that you don't necessarily like, but that doesn't mean that you become a crazy like kill machine, right? And he proved that to them by the end. And to me, yeah, it was a nice wrapping of everything. The fact that he showed that he cared about everyone, because he showed things to Annie, to Reiner as well, to Levi, to everyone. And then they were talking about like they were reminiscing stuff, like Levi saw all his friends from the corpse, from the Survey Corps, like just in
That
front
was
of
Eren?
him.
That was Eren
No,
too?
no, that was not Eren.
Okay.
That was just like, I guess Levi seeing the last ghosts of his friends, like,
Yeah, okay.
you know. And then Connie and Jan saw Sasha, and it's like, it was like last moments of the whole meaning of the anime. It's like everything was awful, everything was hell, but in the middle of this hell, there were the good things, you know.
There was a little paradise for everyone, and truly at the end, no matter the hardships, the breakups, the heartbreaks, everyone ended up being free. And I think that it all rounds up to this always with Attack on Titan. No matter what, Eren was never free, so other people could have that freedom that he would never have. And Annie got absolved from her sins and ended up with Armin. You get Reiner, who also finally gets the freedom to live the life the way he wants. There is Mikasa, who, as much as she will always love Eren, will be able to live a different life. Then there's Levi, who's also, he's surrounded by, didn't he have like a little box with pastries or something at the end?
He was giving candy to kids.
He was giving candy to kids the way that nobody gave him candy. So it's like everyone ended up taking their own destinies in their own hands and reach full freedom. And the ending was really heartwarming for that, because you would never expect an anime like this to be about this. And it turns out it was. And I felt like it was sweet. And I feel like that's where the ending really hit, because I honestly got a little teary-eyed when Levi saw all of his friends.
Yeah.
You saw Erwin, you saw Hanji, you saw Sasha, you saw everyone. And it was just pure sweetness. And with everything that Levi has been through, it's like, yeah, it was well deserved for everyone, I feel like. And it was a beautiful ending.
It was. I think that everyone got the closure they needed with everyone, because Connie kept torturing himself about Sasha's death.
Yeah.
Levi obviously thinking about everyone's death, like he could not save a single one of his friends. Reiner, he had a moment of closure with his mom, where his mom told him, because Reiner came to her and he was like, I'm not the Armored Titan anymore, and she was like, it doesn't matter, like, I'm happy to have you here. And he started crying, and it was like a moment of closure. Like, all these people needed, what they needed was closure of all the things that were torturing them. And and it's like an incredible closure to, or like an unexpected way to wrap this anime up, considering the themes of the anime and how everything has developed. You would think that the last thing they were gonna like go on is gonna be love, right? You're gonna see that in like a war themed anything.
True.
And somehow you do, and you follow these characters, you actually end up liking them. You actually like develop like affection, and you're like, damn, I want them to make it. And then they make it, and the ones who didn't, even they get a sort of closure. Even they like get something out of this. And this actually like reminds, like a kind of like, it brings me to a moment in the end of Levi. He's before the whole fight with Eren. They are in the middle of the fight with Eren, actually. And Levi thinks about Erwin, and he's wondering like why Erwin made the decision, gave him the order that he did. And then finally Levi is like, I don't regret not giving you the Titan and giving it to Armin, who had your same eyes. And at the same time, we see Armin doubting himself and saying how he hates himself and how he's not capable of doing anything. And that just goes to show like the whole, there's a very much like in the last episode, seeing things like for example, we see someone dying and then the baby getting saved, like the baby from the mom that fell off the cliff. We see Armin becoming the colossal titan and Historia giving birth. We see Levi talking about how Armin was the answer and Armin thinking that he's never going to he's never the answer to anything. And it's just these two, there's always like these two parallels like appearing in the show, and just like the one that we're talking about, love versus all the hatred that is portrayed in all the seasons, the hatred from everyone, the hatred from the world, the hatred from Marley to Elia, and then the final answer being love. It's kind of wild, honestly. It's kind of genius the way they managed to work those two ideas like constantly, even though the love one was one that was more on the back burner. Like we saw it, but we didn't see it too much, and then in the final episode we saw it completely. It's pretty interesting.
I have two things that just came to mind while listening to you. I don't know if you wanted to say something, Marvin, or maybe I'll touch on them
you can go
briefly.
ahead.
The first one is about Levi when he recalls Erwin's order, and after he says that he doesn't regret choosing Armin for the colossal titan, he also says that he asks, why has your final order given me so much trouble? Never have I failed in fulfilling any of your orders. However, this final one has caused like basically like so much trouble, like havoc basically. And I was thinking about that reflection from Levi, because he does have some scenes where he would reflect, but not as often, right? So in this scene he really introspected quite a bit, and I'm like, that's true. Like, why is it so important that Levi fulfills this order? Why cannot he? I thought at one moment he had already given up on that order when Reiner kills the Beast Titan at the very beginning, but it was like it wasn't the original one. It was like the white one, right? And he says, oh well, it doesn't count if it's just like an empty vessel or something like that. And then I thought he was already giving up on that order, but then he brings it up again. And well, after he questions that, you see the scene between Zeke and Armin, and Zeke getting this paradigm shift in the way he thought about life. And then Zeke, basically offering himself over to Levi. Like, I don't know what Zeke thought would happen, but that's an outcome that I think no viewer ever predicted, that Zeke would voluntarily say, oh, I'm here, life is so wonderful, kill me. I don't know if he expected to have tea with Levi. I don't really know what he expected, but at the same time I realized that Erwin's last order was so crucial because at that moment the rumbling stops, right? Like, and that was a product of Erwin's order. And I'm like, bro, even though he wasn't resurrected with the colossal titan, it was Erwin's last order that brought the rumbling to a halt, right? True. And it was because of Levi's unwavering commitment to fulfill that order. And when he's wondering, why is it giving me so much trouble, what I thought is the reason might be because fulfilling that order is dependent upon a factor that you cannot control the outcome of. Similar to Ymir and Mikasa coming together, Eren said, I could see the outcome just until this point, but I don't know what the outcome of them coming together will be. I thought like a similar thing, Levi had so much trouble because it was dependent upon Zeke having an internal realization that he would have only had, if he would have that conversation with Armin, and if and for that Ymir had to create the paths. So I thought it was very interesting, like that cycle of decision making, coming back to Irving, coming back to your commitment to someone that might not even be alive, can have such a drastic impact on your life, because Irving is no longer alive. However, his last wish had such a drastic impact on the rumbling coming to an end, and it was because of Levi actually executing that order. In a similar way, I would guess Mikasa's commitment to not giving up on the beauty of life that he saw through Eren and the memories is what made her become what she became, and make the decision she made at the end, where she was able to separate those two things. And one last thing that I wanted to ask you guys is, you mentioned that Ymir, I think at one point you mentioned that Ymir didn't have something to live for, and that's why she was stuck in this 2,000-year cycle. Is that what you said?
Yeah, because when Zeke is talking to Armin, he's talking about this creature called life, and how it is so unwilling to let go of life, and how it wants to multiply, and it just does not want to assimilate death. And then he said Ymir was the same. She seeked for an escape from her reality. She seeked for something else. Then she found the Titan, not the Titan, but she found the creature thing, and they became one, right? And she was so like unwilling to let go, and she created the coordinate, because and Zeke said this, it was probably a way for her to try to find a connection with someone, because she did not have something that could give her what Mikasa had, and could not give her a peaceful death. She was like a vengeful spirit, if you want to call it, like one that's not willing to let go, because nothing got resolved in her life. Everything was like
a what? You said she
like
was
a what? like some sort of
spirit.
vengeful spirit. Yeah.
Okay.
Because she never had these moments of my joyful moment that is the reason why I was born, the little playing catch or running up the hill. She never had that, so she was attached to like all the hate she had within her, to, I don't know, she was not letting go,
But my question regarding that is, they still described what she felt towards King Fritz as love, like repeatedly, right? And apparently it was her love for him what made her be stuck, and that's why she creates the coordinates. So that's why I have a bit of trouble understanding.
But she wasn't living. She was stuck. She was in prison. She wasn't living to the fullest. That's what we were saying. Like, Mikasa was living because something was a motivation for her to keep going and keep advancing. Ymir was stuck. She was not advancing at all. She was at the same place forever.
So do you think she was like heartbroken? Do you think
I think she was broken, period. I think she was just broken.
And would you call... Go ahead, yeah.
No, I was just gonna say that there is this notion of in Japan where there is this that if you die in from a really horrendous way, for example, and you don't get closure, your spirit becomes vengeful. It's like it's a Japanese notion of thing that your spirit becomes something that could hurt others, right? Like an evil spirit. So I do think that there's a sense of that in Ymir, of her life was so tragic and she died in such a horrific way that her body was not even respected, that her entire spirit, her everything just got stuck in this endless loop of suffering that she could not break away from it. And then she was completely like, she had lost herself. I mean, she was in this place where there was no life, no death, trapped in there, still following the order of the king. Like she was trapped in a cycle of pain,
And what was the
she
order?
had no way to break it.
What was the order of the king?
Like, you remember, she was creating the colossus. You remember the colossus for the walls? She created them, and she created every titan. Basically, she would sculpt them.
Oh, so that was the order she was fulfilling. No, okay.
Yeah.
I do remember. I
Creating
thought
an
maybe
army
there
for
was.
him.
What's that?
Creating an army for the king.
Right. I thought maybe there was like an additional order, but because the paths was her choice, right? And then in the past she still fulfilled the order.
Because she was unwilling to let go of because she wasn't alive nor dead, but she was unwilling to die. Like, that's what Zeke was saying, that she was so unwilling to let go that she was trapped in this place.
And right, Zeke did say that she was, motivated by the fear. He said that, we as a species are so fearful of death because that's the end, or the, antithesis of multiplication, of passing on our genes. And she was unwilling to do that and was motivated by fear. So one thing, though, that I would ask also to both of you is, do you think that was... They do describe it as love, what she had for King Fritz, but would you describe it as love, what she felt towards him?
Yeah, I think it was love for her entire life. I think that's all she's ever known, because she was a kid, basically. She felt endearing, she felt love, and I think that eventually it became her downfall. Yeah, I think it was love. And the love that she felt is the same love that all the other characters felt. And it all ties up to the same thing, is what you do with love, and it can build or destroy you. And I think that very much is the moral of Attack on Titan, of what are you gonna do with love, with your life, with your freedom, and are you free to love whoever you want to love? And my question to you guys is, because I think we're reaching our time, is, do you guys have any final thoughts on this final episode?
I think I think that we had a pretty good discussion, actually. Like, the whole thing about the memories and Mikasa having this memory, it really wrapped up the whole show for me, because I'm like, it's a full circle moment of why is Mikasa so attached to the good memories and not willing to see the bad. And now it wraps up to the fact that these are the moments that are meant to live for, just like Zeke and Armin were discussing. And I think it wraps up pretty much everything quite nicely. Like, I know a lot of people give crap to like the ending of Attack on Titan, and I do understand. There are moments that I'm like,
there were bad stuff that we intentionally didn't mention, but overall, as an episode, as a symbolic episode, I think it worked. Thematically, it worked.
And I think it closed, like we said, it gave closure to everyone, to absolutely everyone. And the fact that the ending is leading towards us thinking that there's gonna be a new Titan thing because of the kid and the dog going into Eren's tree is also interesting, because it also has to do with the fact that this thing that Zeke mentions, life, does not want to die and is always gonna find
Yeah.
a way. And in the entire anime, there is this whole thing about life finds a way. And in the entire final episode, there were parallels all over the place about life and death, and the whole anime is like a huge circle. It's very cyclical, you know, and
True.
and it only makes sense. So I think it was a beautiful wrap for the whole anime, for the whole show, for the whole everything.
So was the centipede inside the tree when the kid finds the tree?
I think
We don't
so.
know. We don't know. We assume the centipede was there. Yeah.
Because what happened with the centipede, right? Like, do you
Yeah.
guys know? Because Reiner was like holding on to him, and then Mikasa and Levi go to kill Eren, but at the end it's like a mystery. Like, what happened with the centipede? Because they didn't
Yeah,
kill it.
we don't know.
It
No, they don't kill it.
It always finds a way, like
Yeah.
you were saying.
It always finds a way.
Yeah. Were you going to say any final thoughts, Marvin, on your end?
No, I think I got mine in order.
Mine would be similar to what Anna was saying. I just think at one point, just to summarize, I remember in season 4, I saw Eren as this Ubermensch. I think I said that last episode, like the Superman, this human that had reached ultimate freedom and was able to enact his will however he wanted to change whatever outcome he envisioned. Then, after watching the last episode, I realized Eren was in a way a victim, a victim of memories and of the stories of the Titans, and his mind getting all messed up because of losing track of reality and time itself. And watching the last episode, I realized that it was never like that. That impression was false. However, what I do feel is that Ubermensch, so to speak, or transcendental human in the anime, for me at least, was Mikasa. I think she showed that you don't actually need to tamper with the chronological order of events. You don't actually need to delete trauma or bad memories in order to, reach a higher dimension, a higher level of freedom, and you can actually choose what memories you cling onto in order to live a life that is worth living. That for me was a very powerful conclusion that I will, reflect on. So those are my final thoughts.
I think that pretty much wraps it up for all of us. Like, I think we all enjoyed the episode, like, very much so. I think it was well done. It was a good ending. I know it's controversial, but I think that at the end of the day, there wasn't really a better way to end it. There were stuff that I would change, but I feel like they're not necessary to mention because overall, the theme really hit where it was supposed to hit. And as an audience member, I really appreciated that this show that I've invested time in
It didn't let you down.
didn't let me down. Exactly. And I wanted to bring the question to you guys who are watching, if you had any thoughts on the finale, if you had any thoughts on the show, if you would like to share theories. Maybe you interpreted the centipede differently than us. Maybe you think that the ending was open towards something else. What did you think about Mikasa and Jan? We would be interested to hear your thoughts about this and maybe start a new discussion and maybe bring up points that we haven't seen before. So feel free to leave it in the comments, leave a like, subscribe, and please let's keep this conversation going.
And also thank you for joining us today. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.
And just like Marvin said, let's keep the conversation going. And if you want us to talk of any topic that you think would be interesting, let us know in the comments down below.
Thank you everyone for watching. We appreciate your time and your support. If you want us to continue with this podcast and have interesting conversations, Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. And yes, thank you very much. We welcome all your comments, any input you want to give us to improve the way we do the videos. You are all welcome. So thank you again, and stay tuned.
Stay tuned. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.